the thing that I'm scared about is that I'm still waiting for my last Halloween script. I'm really scared that it's gonna come like at the wrong time and I gotta go back to just be super stressed out.
That's a good thing to talk about too. Do you ever get to a point where like you never have to deal with that again? Because you're right. Like here you are, you're in a very good and comfortable place professionally, and it could happen. You could get that book and it could be you're juggling 2 books at once. This is the Inkpulp podcast. Boom! Dude, I haven't seen anyone do that since I was a kid. That's amazing. That's hilarious. Welcome to the always hilarious Inkpulp podcast with the Fratelli brothers. Always farting noises, always. The Fratelli brothers are here solo today. Matteo's got something he wants to talk. Well, first off, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. It was a pretty productive week. I think, I don't know if we talked about it already, but I have something planned. I have a new project planned for next year. And
you told me about it, but you can't say it on the podcast, right?
Yeah, no, I can't talk about it yet.
Right. You're talking about the project with the writer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And that, despite the fact that originally my plan was, I'm going to do my book no matter what, and then I'm going to think about what I want to do after. But I got to say, the fact that I have something lined up after this book,
good.
It put me, like in Italy we say, it put pepper under my ass.
Yeah. Okay.
Meaning that, now I have the deadline and I have to, I'm working like I'm producing.
So having a deadline is really helping you like stay focused and get it done. Yeah. That's good. Yeah. I could see that.
It's, it brings some anxiety, but it's anxiety that I can deal with because I've been dealing with
it's healthy anxiety.
My whole career. Yeah.
Right.
It's it's bringing new energy. The fact that the thing that I have to be focused on is now that I have deadlines, not to rush up stuff, but still work with the same philosophy, the same mood, meaning the page is not done until I'm super happy with it. Instead of let's just finish this fucking page.
Well, that's a good thing to talk about because deadline pressure is hard, and it's hard to find. Like, there's healthy deadline pressure and there's unhealthy deadline pressure, and it's hard to find that balance. Do you remember when in your career you started to feel like, okay, this deadline is good. Like it's giving me a little anxiety, but it's keeping me focused and motivated as opposed to always being in like, oh fuck, am I going to get this done?
I don't know, to be honest with you. Like,
did you ever feel that way? Did you ever feel like panic from the deadline?
Not really, because at the end of the day, I found out real soon that even if you don't, get the deadline, nothing's going to happen.
Right.
So once you, and don't get me wrong, like I've almost always been on time. If I was late, it was just a few days, nothing, nothing bad. So I keep, one of the main things is I keep my word. Like if we decide that the book is gotta be it's gotta be finished by this specific date, I always make sure to finish it by that date. But yeah, I soon realized if it's, nothing's gonna happen. Like unless Unless it's a big book for a big publisher, like I don't know if you're the artist on the X-Men or if you're the artist on Batman.
Right.
And, you know, in that case, they might use some, how do you call it? Fill-in artist?
Yeah, fill-in, yeah.
Yeah. And that happened to some colleagues of mine. But generally speaking, nothing incredibly bad is going to happen. And also, I'm kind of spoiled because for 7 years, I worked on Black Science. And basically, we did the deadlines. And even if something came up, I could easily say, hey, guys, I'm going to be late. Like, at a certain point, after a certain point, I didn't even mention if I was going to be late or not. It was just... I would just keep doing the books and working on the book that I was currently working on. Right. And, you know, and when it's done, you know, and you know, granted, at the end of the day, Black Science managed to, you know, come out at a decent time every time, like not too late, aside from a few exceptions here and there.
Right.
But
and sometimes that's not even the artist's fault. Sometimes it's just scheduling. They're like, oh, we have too many books coming out on this day, so we're going to push the book.
Yeah. Of course. And, but going back to your questions, to the first part of your question, the first time I was really happy was, with, One Bad Day, Batman, One Bad Day, the Mr. Freeze book. Yeah. The one that Eric loves.
Wait, who loves it? Who's Eric?
The guy, I don't know if you remember that. He's a Filipino guy, but a lot of people think he's a black guy because he kind of looks like a black guy. And so
I think I've seen some posters, like people are looking for him, like these "Have you seen him?" stickers.
Yeah, that guy, exactly.
Okay,
yeah,
all right, okay.
We're still looking for him.
Okay.
So, so in that case, they asked me to do this thing, and they explained to me the whole scope of the project. So we're gonna be having, you know, different artists and writers, and different, and every chapter is gonna be dedicated to a different Batman villain, and I was like, okay, let's try this. I had never tried that. And I decided to try that in that case. And I told him, okay, I can do it if I have this X amount of time to do it. And with X amount of time, I mean like a lot of time. Like it's 64 pages, and I asked for, I don't know, like 5 months or something. Like a long, I don't remember how much, but a long, but way longer than it should take me to do it. And then I asked for a considerable raise on my page rate.
Good.
And I was like,
for you.
Let's, like, I would like send, and let's see what happens.
And what happened?
Like, either I'm going to become the asshole in the industry, or they're going to be fine with it. Dude, and it went fine. They were like, yeah, we discussed, and we're fine with the page rate.
Oh,
and
great.
We're fine with the deadline you gave us. So yeah, we're good to go. And that was awesome. Like when that happened, I was like, I you know, when you realize you can do something that you thought you would never be able to do that. Like if all of a sudden you're able to do a somersault jump or something.
Right.
And you're like, oh, fuck, I never tried it. I was always convinced that I couldn't do it. You know?
I did the same thing. Yeah. Yeah. When you start to, it's good. It's good advice for any artist listening to just ask for a little more, ask for a little more time, ask for a little more money. Because you never know, and the worst they can say is no. But also, to Matteo's point, you were already the asshole in the industry before you asked that question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't want to be extra asshole.
Oh. Okay. All right. I got you.
I didn't want to be more than I already am, famous for. And how about you, brother? Like, did you have experiences like weird or whatever, like?
Yeah,
worth mentioning episodes
in terms of getting a raise and stuff like that.
Or no, also with deadlines, whatever comes to mind.
Yeah, recently, like I would say when Marvel Snap first came to me, and told me what they like generally what they pay and how much time. I remember I said I hadn't done freelance in a couple years at that point, and I was like, you know. The game wasn't out yet. I didn't know anything about the company. I was like, this seems like a fun job, but if I don't get it, I don't care. And so I asked for more than they said, and I asked for more time, and they came back at me with not what I asked for money, but more than they offered me originally. So we met in the middle. So that was good. And then as far as time goes, they're like, yeah, don't worry about it. I was like, okay. And I was like, yeah. And I felt the same thing. Like when I hit send, I was like, we'll see. And then it came back. I was like, it just confirms, like, just ask. And if I wouldn't have asked, because I was so used to just saying, okay. And if I wouldn't have asked, I would have made less money and been under more pressure. So I think it's good to ask.
Absolutely. And like weird things like when deadline got too tight and you got really stressed out about them.
Yeah. So if the thing I learned early on was I'm like you, I was always very punctual. I was never late. Maybe by a few days here and there. But if I saw like I was starting a book and the schedule looking ahead was getting tight, and this is when I was teaching full time also. So it was a lot of looking at my schedule every day to see what I'm going to
sorry to interrupt, but when you were teaching, like how many hours are we talking about? I've never asked you this.
When I was teaching, I was running the department, the comic book program at SCAD in Atlanta, and teaching. So it was a full-time job. The amount of hours I spent in class every week, I want to say was 25 to 30 hours in class, but then I had grading and scheduling because I ran the department. So I'd say teaching was probably a 40 to 50 hour a week amount of time, and then comics.
So like 5 plus 3 hours every day.
Yeah.
You said, so of actual like being in class 25 per week. So we're talking about like class, 5 hours every day, right?
Monday Monday through Thursday. Friday was office hours. So I was in school on Fridays, but just in my office. So I could do some of my administrative work, like making up schedules and checking in with all my professors and all that stuff. But I'd say in total with everything, it was about 40 to 50 hours a week I was working for SCAD. And then on top of that, I was putting in probably at least 20 hours at Marvel. So it was a bit rough.
You were busy. Jesus.
Yeah, it was a bit rough.
Okay, so sorry to interrupt. I was just curious. So back to your
what was the original question?
Your deadline. Yeah, you were talking about.
So deadline, with all that going on, if I saw myself like early on, I could tell like, ooh, I'm going to be cutting it way too close. I would email my editor and be like, look, here's where I am. Here's what's going on. And 90% of the time they're like, oh, here's an extra week. You're good. And that was all I'd need. But there was one time where they emailed me like, hey, we need to shorten your schedule because we need the book to come out sooner. We're going to start shipping 2 books a month. This was on Deadpool. And I was like, okay, well, I can't do that. And they were like, well, let's get an inker. So it was like the one time I had an inker ink me. So that, there was always solutions. Like as long as you communicated, that's what I was saying. I learned as long as you communicate and you act like we're a team trying to meet the deadline, you're fine. Like even if you can't miss it, like you said, they'll be like, okay, we'll get a fill-in artist. Like when I was finishing Arkham Manor, my editor, Mark Doyle, was like, hey, what my plan is I want to keep this going as a monthly book. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. Like, great. I get to just stay on Batman. This is amazing. And he was like, so are you good going right into the next arc? And I was like, I mean, this was after 6 issues. And I was like, I can't do a monthly book. He's like, well, let's get a fill-in artist for like a 1 or 2 issue story. And then you do another 6. And I was like, that's perfect. And that's what we were going to do for Arkham Manor. And I remember even thinking to myself, like, I would love to see if we could get Mattteo to be that fill-in person. But then DC said, no, we're not going to do it. So it didn't happen. But yeah, I learned as long as you communicate, like if you're part of solving the problem, it's all good.
Yeah.
I think the worst thing you can do is just hide and disappear. Like that's bad.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I've learned that it's not easy sometimes because you gotta, there's people. There's a chance that you gotta frustrate people because they were expecting something, and now you're not meeting their expectations. But it's always better to be upfront and just say it. Just say it and sit and see what happens instead of just disappearing. Yeah. There's a lot of people that just disappear.
Right. I think people, like, especially young artists, probably think like, if I don't meet my deadline, then I'm an awful professional. But I think the truth of it is, if you know you can't meet it, talk to your editor about it, because that's the professional thing to do, to speak up. And as long as you speak up, they're not going to like think any less of you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I totally agree. I think, I was thinking about something else, but yeah, no. Oh, here's what I was thinking about: the fact that the thing that I'm scared about is that I'm still waiting for my Last Halloween script.
I forgot about that. Yeah, you have that in the mix too.
Yeah. Because originally I was supposed to be the artist for the 5th book, for issue number 5. So I was supposed to be having the script already by now and probably have done it. Right.
Yeah, I remember you saying you were going to get script in June, I thought.
Yeah. Well, we're talking about June 2023.
Oh, I thought it was this year. Okay.
No. June 2023. But, the whole thing was, since it wasn't announced back then, they wanted to wait for the first artist. So Mark Chiarello, all the first artists of the first issues. And then I became the artist for issue number 10, which is the final issue. And, and yeah.
That's good.
So, I still have that, and I don't know. I don't want to put pressure or any, solicitation and stuff to the team. So I'm just gonna wait. But I'm really scared that it's gonna come like at the wrong time.
Yeah,
and I gotta go back to just be super stressed out.
Oh yeah.
And
I mean, yeah. Like, I don't know if you can, like, I wondered about this. That's a good thing to talk about too. Do you ever get to a point where like you never have to deal with that again? Because you're right. Like, here you are, you're in a very good and comfortable place professionally, and it could happen. You could get that book and it could be you're juggling 2 books at once.
Yeah. It can still happen, especially for this projects where there's not a specific deadlines at first. And it's all their teamwork. So there's a lot of artists, a lot of people involved. So there's a lot of moving parts. So stuff can be delayed. So you were supposed to be starting again, like 3 months ago, but you haven't received the script yet. I'm not complaining. That happens. I know it's part of the game. So, but yeah, it can happen, especially because, nowadays what happens is that they contact you for a project that has to start maybe next year. Right. So you say, okay, to a project for next year, counting that, okay, so for this year, I'm going to finish this, and that, and then it's done. But this, and that, what might happen is that this and that might take longer than you plan. Sometimes
Right.
not even your fault. So
Right.
the whole thing gets, fucked. Like the same thing happened to me with Black Signs, because the last issue is the one that took the most, especially for Eric. The last two issues is the grand finale. And Rick was, it took a lot of his time to finish it. He was, I think back then he was dealing with his
The TV show, right?
father. Yeah, the TV show, and his father
passed away,
wasn't
yeah.
doing well.
Right.
He had a lot of his on a stable, like a lot of projects. Some of them became TV shows, so he was super busy, and also working on a lot of books at the same time. He was having trouble because it's the end of a huge story.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of moving parts, stuff that you wrote like 3 years ago. I think that happened 3 years ago. That's got to come back. So everything got to be solved in the over the last 50 pages. And he wasn't remembering because he had so many stories in his head now. And also, like, he was writing a lot of adaptations of Black Science for the TV show.
Right.
That didn't happen in the end. But still, he had to rewrite it like 14 times. They were just fucking with him so bad. And they wanted us to change the story from the book. So in his head, he had all of this alternate Black Science stories.
Yeah.
So he had trouble like understanding. Okay, so is this a TV show or the book? Like,
right.
He was having trouble.
And even in the book, you're jumping like realities, like every arc. Like it's a lot.
Yeah. So that took us a lot of time, way more than I planned. So, and I had to start working on Space Bandit with Lara.
Right. I remember this.
And I was like, when he asked me, I was like, okay, so when do you want to start working on it? And I made the math in my head. We only had the last two issues of Black Science. So I was like, okay, let's say 4 months or 5 months from now, just to make 100% sure that I would finish Black Science, then take like a month just to, you finished a 1,000 pages long story, so you want to take a second to, take it in and realize what you've done and then move on,
Right.
And that didn't happen. So the script was super late. So basically I had to work on Black Science and Space Bandits at the same time.
Okay.
And that was the time when I was working on how do you call it, the Spider-Man movie, the
Spider-Verse
movie.
Yeah, the Spider-Verse
as well. So I had three jobs at the same time. It was like fucking crazy, man. And Francesca, I remember Francesca saw me the first time like really stressed out, because when we started dating, my working time was already, decent. So she never saw me like working my ass off, like working Saturdays and Sundays sometimes. She never saw that. So she was like, well, his job is really easy. Like, I don't see you overworking. You're always done by 5, 6 p.m. You're done. You never seem stressed out. And then she saw like, and I told her, listen, like, this is now, but before, things were way, way different back then.
Yeah.
And she saw that and she was like, okay, now I get it.
So how long did that period last where you had those 3 jobs you were juggling?
It was like 2 or 3 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was like, I would say that during those 2-3 months, so Black Science was like, the last 2 issues were like 54, almost 60 pages. And then the first 2 chapters of Space Bandits. So, and the first book was like 30 pages or so. So we're talking about like 120 pages plus character studies
Spider-Verse,
for Spider-Verse, like in 3 months or so.
See, that's because that space that you were in, that's where I am now. I've been living there for like 5 months. But the difference is, I think most of the stuff I'm doing isn't making me money right now. So it's added a whole nother level of stress to the equation. But it's a hard thing to do, but it is what it is.
Is that the stuff that you're referring to, mainly the website?
Yeah. All right. So I'll break it down. This is good because I can let the public know what's coming. I am putting together a class with Jake Parker and his online school called Graphic Novel Pro, where we're going to teach. It's a 10-week course where we teach all aspects of comic book creation together. So that's awesome, man. Building that class for the past since January. I've been building the class. So now I've written all my lesson outlines, and I just have to put them into the template next. And I got all my images chosen. So that's one thing. The second thing is Jake and I are doing and so that class isn't going to come out till 2025 in March. And the other thing I'm doing is Jake and I are doing a workshop this November. So I had to build that. Another thing is, like you said, the website, which is up now. Go to Inkpulp TV, everybody. It's the home of the Inkpulp community. Sign up on the website. You'll become a member of the website. It's free, and you'll get my newsletter.
Tell Jamie to put something. on the
Jamie.
right now.
Jamie. Jamie, you did something nice on the live show where you like scrolled through the site, and you did it for the commercial. Actually, Jamie, air the commercial. That's what we should do. Air the commercial.
Right. Shawn, according to my analytics, your thumbnails are one of the highest in demand items on the internet. What have you got to say about that?
Jim, funny you should say that. I have a gift for everyone in the Inkpulp community. A free PDF of some of my thumbnails, as Jim said, which are in high demand. Also, I'm giving you a new home, the home of craft, the official home of the Inkpulp community, inkpulp.tv. A place where you can learn about the craft of comics, engage with the community, receive special offers, and so much more. In order to get your free PDF, head to Inkpulp TV, sign up for the newsletter. This is just the beginning of so many wonderful things to come. Thank you. Keep craft alive. And welcome back to the Inkpulp podcast.
Welcome back.
So it's the two things with Jake, the website, and then I'm learning to tattoo, which is every Friday I'm in the shop, but I also have to spend time designing the tattoo that week. So that's another thing. So none of those things are and I'm tattooing for free because I'm not licensed yet and I'm practicing. So none of those things are paying money. And then I have to take the county test to get a license for tattooing. And then I have to take 3 state board classes, one in first aid, one in CPR, and one in bloodborne pathogens. So I have to do those 2. And on top of that, I've got 2 freelance gigs. One is Marvel Snap and one is the Spawn covers I'm working on. Now those pay, but those those always take the least. They're like the lowest priority because everything else seems like it's on fire, but they're the things that pay me. So it's that. And then all of the home stuff, managing finances and food shopping and cooking, like all that shit too.
Yeah. That was what I was gonna talk about as well, because it's, my fear, because as I said, I already had periods when I'm super busy. So I know that I can handle it. Yeah. But the problem is that now my situation is not what it used to be back then. Because if it's just you, it's fine. I can decide what I used to do is just, okay, I'm going to lock myself in the house. I'm going to, what I used to do when I was working with Marvel the first time on Secret Avengers. it was, I would go to bed at 10. I had like a tight schedule. So work, go to bed at 10 p.m., wake up at 5, then work until like 1 p.m., then eat, sleep a little bit because I was too tired, like from waking up so early, and then work until 10 p.m.
Yeah.
And eat here and there sometimes when I had the time.
Yeah.
And do that like repeatedly, like for weeks and weeks and weeks.
7 days a week.
Yeah. Now, like I might be able to wake up at 5, but if I decide to go to bed every time at 10, that means that I have only 1 hour or 30 minutes for, spend time with my girlfriend, just me and her. Well, I mean, you know better than I do. Like it's all the stuff that you mentioned.
Yeah. No, it's good to talk about.
So you can make that kind of plans, meaning you can say, okay, I'm just gonna disappear from society for the next 2 months. You can't do that anymore.
Yeah,
there's too much stuff, too many moving parts. It's impossible.
Right. I wish I knew what that was like, because my entire career, I've not been single. I've been married with kids my entire career. So it's always been such a difficult juggle. Oh, and I didn't even mention, on top of those things, we do the podcast every week, and I do a live show every 2 weeks. So those are just more things added to the mix.
Yeah.
But it's
and also
tricky.
like if we were in the like 40s, 50s, it would be so easy. You just go out and buy cigarettes, the usual thing.
and alcohol.
Buy cigarettes. No. You don't buy cigarettes. You just disappear forever. You just go to another place. You don't have a family anymore, and you can focus on whatever the fuck you want to focus on. You were not
disappear.
Getting what I was thinking.
No, now I get it. Yeah,
you just leave them. Yeah, you just disappear. And that's so easy. Like, it's don't get me wrong. Like, I don't regret a single thing of my life.
No,
right now.
I don't either.
I love it. But yeah, I see. Like, you never seen the switch because, as you said, like it's always been like that for you. But for me, I saw the switch, and now, like, I maybe out of 1 year, there's only probably 2-3 weeks, if I'm lucky, where everything goes according to plans. The way I planned it. Meaning, on Monday, I'm going to wake up at this time, do this, and this, and that. And then that's it. End of day 1. Then day 2 is going to be this, and this, and this, and that. Mm-hmm. Like, and I'm not used to that. Like, usually out of the 52 weeks of a year, I would say 30 or 40 of them were always like at the end on Friday, I would be like, okay, this was my plan for the week, and here's what I did. And they pretty much coincide. Like
I dream of experiencing that once.
Yeah, man.
That sounds awesome.
It's a great training. What I've noticed is a great training on learning that you can control everything.
That's true. Yeah, you got to surrender.
Yeah.
I'm not good at accepting that. I know it's true, but I get very frustrated often because, well, I think mainly I do feel like if I had more financial comfort, I wouldn't get frustrated because it'd be like, it is what it is. But now it's like, oh shit, I didn't get that stuff done. Now I'm not going to get paid. Now what am I going to do? Like that's the space I want to get out of. But yeah, you do have to learn to surrender to stuff. I mean, today I came into the studio. I was like, I'm just going to finally spend a day just painting and not let anything bother me. And I got in here and I was like, oh, fuck, I forgot to pick up my euros from the bank. Oh, and I have to get my car emissions tested so I can register the car before we leave town on Monday. And I was like, and I got a podcast. I'm like, oh shit, am I going to get any painting done today? Which sucks. I wanted to get this done before I leave, but And then my brain kicks in. It's like, oh, just stay at the studio till midnight. And I'm like, oh man, that's gonna be rough.
Yeah, well, a thing that helps me, that's been helping me lately, is like it relates to my book specifically, because I'm like, in my head, I had this plan of, for example, finishing it by the end of the year.
Right.
And what helps me is starting to think, but at the end, like if I don't finish it by the end of the year, nothing's going to happen. Like it hasn't been announced.
Right.
No one has seen it yet. So even if it comes out by the end of next year, just nothing happens, you know?
Right.
So that, because I realized that was the thing that it was stressing me out the most, because it was normally what happens is somebody calls you, like let's say Marvel calls you, you want to be on the X-Men for like X issues, like 5 issues. And then they give you deadlines and stuff. And you say yes. And then if it's up to you if you can respect those deadlines. And they gave you those deadlines. So it's a thing that it's an agreement that you had with somebody else. In this case, for my book, it's an agreement that I had with me, but the fact that I decided it's got to be ready by the end of the year is just random. There's
exactly. That's true.
There's no actual plan. So on one hand, you're always free to say, well, whatever, we're going to delay it. I know I said to myself, it's going to be December 2024, but now it's, March 2025 or August 2025, and who gives a shit? But at the same time, it's kind of an annoying that I'm the only one that doesn't get the respect, meaning, if somebody else asked me, I'll do anything possible to finish it by that day that we established. If I say it, that is not valid anymore. I can't, I don't have to keep my word to myself.
Right. Yeah.
The word that I gave myself. So it's kind of frustrating, but at the same time, I got to live with it,
Yeah. I live in that same headspace. Exactly. It's you set these goals and then you try to make them a firm, like locked in deadline, but life happens and it's frustrating. It's absolutely frustrating because then I feel like I'm fucking up if I don't meet that deadline. But the truth of it is I just decided that was my deadline and I can move it. And so all I'm doing is causing myself to suffer with stress.
Yeah.
And that's something to let go of. There's a line. I always try to remember this. There's a line. So Lane Staley, who was one of the singers of Alice in Chains, he had another band. He had another band called Mad Season. Did you ever listen to Mad Season?
No.
All right. So they were more acoustic and dark and mellow. But the first line of one of their songs was, "My pain is self-chosen." And I always remember that line when I get frustrated. I'm like, you're just doing this to yourself. You're making yourself stressed. But it doesn't make me less stressed. It just reminds me of like, stop doing it.
Yeah. At the same time, I don't know. I think there's a positive part also to it. Like there's a positive side to it. And I don't know.
What's the positive side?
Well, meaning that I'm still like the will to do it is still there.
Yeah.
If you don't have any of that, what the fuck are you going to do? Like just,
right.
Are you going to become, there's artists, we know those artists. There's just, you hear, and they're very talented and you see they do something. And then you don't hear from them for like 3 years. Right. Those artists that you see at shows, you talk about them in private and you're like, what is it? What are they doing now? Dude, nobody knows,
I feel like I'm one of those artists now because I've been out of like doing comics for a long time. And like, other than like Marvel Snap was like a great freelance gig and it kept me busy, but it's still, that's not in comics really.
Yeah.
It's a game. And like the Spawn covers were like the first thing I'm doing in comics in like 5-6 years. Yeah. It sucks to have that feeling where I'm at a show. I'm like, are people looking at me like, what are you doing here? Like, are you still here? Like, what are you doing? Like, it's not a good feeling.
Yeah, no, I bet. But it's a different situation. Like, I was thinking about, because if tomorrow you'll get a nice gig, I mean, you have a lot of on your table now. So there's a lot of stuff that you have to do. But let's say that you don't have much and all of a sudden you get a nice gig talking about like 8 issues on a Batman book or, you know, a nice thing. Yeah. You get yourself to do it somehow, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, that would be
talking about those artists that have a big thing in their hand, but they just don't know how to discipline themselves.
Yes.
And they just think that time is this thing that we invented, but doesn't really exist.
So, yeah,
and they
like
get lost in it, you know?
Right. I know what you mean. You hear like, oh my God, so-and-so is doing this project, and then it just never happens. You're like, what happened?
Yeah.
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 And they have this, you know, thing. So at the end of the day, I still think that it's a positive. Going back to the deadlines, this goes back to the same thing, but
yeah,
it's a positive thing that I'm frustrated of not being able to do that, because I remember this frustration that I'm feeling. And next time I'm going to be like, no, like I'm going to plant my feet and say, no, I don't want to be that frustrated again. I'm going to respect my word that I gave to myself. So I'm going to do that, you know? And in the end, I know that I'm going to do like my book and I'm going to finish it. It's going to be delayed a little bit because I don't think I'm going to be able to finish everything by the end of the year. If I'm lucky, like right now, next week, I'm going to be finished issue number 3 completely.
Nice.
Maybe issue number 4 will be done by the end of the year, maybe, or half of it or some of it. I don't know. And then 5 will have to wait until you know, I finish
the project, the
project, which is not, you know, it's not a long gig. We're talking about, you know, a mini series. So we're not talking about a thing that's going to take me forever.
Right.
But yeah. I was,
and the long Halloween could just fall in at any time, right?
Yeah. But it's 24 pages.
Okay.
It's, you know, I'm going to make it. The important thing for me now is be really communicative with Francesca, with my girlfriend, in order to be like, hey, to prepare her psychologically, like, hey, this happened. So it's going to be a few rough months where I have to be super focused on the book. So please bear with me. A lot of money is going to come out of it. So, you know.
Right. So I imagine she's pretty supportive of that.
Yeah, money.
When you say that. Well, just of you, like, not just the money, but that you're going to be busy and it's going to be a little rough for a couple months. She's like, yeah, go ahead, do your thing. It's all good.
She's not really that way. Like, she gets frustrated.
Oh, okay. That's what I was going to ask.
At first, then she understands. Like, she has this skill that I don't have, where she's like pure reaction. Like, I'm the opposite. Like, sometimes, like, there's stuff that should be like alarming, and I get alarmed way later, too late. Okay. Some would say. And she's not that way. I'm actually learning from her sometimes. Like, sometimes she's too reactive. Like, she's like, I don't know, something happens, like I'm dying or stuff.
Right.
So it's a little bit too much. But I'm trying to learn how to do that, how to be more reactive to stuff, because it's important, generally speaking. Gotcha. So she can get frustrated, but then if you talk to her, she understands, you know. Okay. So I'm hoping that will happen. So that's why I'm trying to talk about these things way earlier than they happen. So she's kind of prepared.
Let me ask you, then let me ask you. So you're preparing her, but when it gets to that point and it's like 3 weeks into 2 months of you being very busy, are you worried she's going to be like, what the fuck is going on here? And it's like all the preparation didn't help. Now she's frustrated with you and you're stressed out and busy.
Huh. I don't know. We'll have to see. Like, right, well, generally speaking, like, even if I tell her, I know that, let's say this next project's going to take, I don't know, like 6 months, 7 months, whatever.
Yeah.
I know that even if I tell her in advance, she's not going to be fine with it for 7 months. I'm going to be needing to remind her, like, at least once every month. Like, hey, I told you it was going to be like this and blah, blah, blah. And the thing is that I notice is that if you don't do, like, if you're not a creative, if you don't have a creative career, like a career in a creative job, like, it's hard to understand that this thing that, like, okay, sometimes I can work like 4 hours and be way more productive than other days when I've been working for 8 hours.
Yes.
And, you know, I haven't produced basically anything useful.
Right.
So it's everything's really relative in our work.
Yes.
Day by day. Like, sometimes I was, you know, in my head, it's like, I had to finish this page by today. And sometimes by lunch, the page is done. Because I don't know, I was in the zone, you know?
Right. Yeah.
But sometimes the same page could take me 3 times more.
Yeah.
And she doesn't understand that because she doesn't work in that kind of environment.
It's not a machine. We're not a machine. It's not a science. It's there's a lot of, there's magic in it. Like, you just can't explain it. There's just something in it.
Yeah. And
but
also
there are some artists who work like a machine where they just sit down and it takes them the same amount of time every day, no matter, like, I think Shawn is like that.
Yeah. What I see personally, I can do that, but I need sometimes to starting to get in the rhythm. Like right now, I'm doing that with my book. So like today I did my page in like 3 hours or something. So that allows me to start working on the pencils for the next page and blah, 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 and start inking the next page. Sometimes I'm in the zone. So I finish all the pencils and then I start inking. So the next day I only have the last 3 panels to ink. So I finish earlier. True. So the machine starts to work, but it takes some momentum.
Time. Yeah, it's like a car. Like you can't just hit go. Like you can't just lay on the gas pedal and go. You got to build up warm up the machine. Yeah.
And also daily you have to face this thing, meaning that sometimes, maybe in a day I have 7 hours, but they're all scattered. Like I have, I don't know, I wake up and start working at 7:30. And then at 10, there's a technician that has to come over here to fix something.
Exactly.
And then they go away in like, sometimes like 45 minutes, not any more than that. But then I have another 2 hours. Then I got to hit the gym and then I come back. So overall, maybe I might have 7 hours, but they're all so scattered that I never managed to get in that area.
What you
of my
just
brain.
explained is my daily life right now. And that's what frustrates me so much is I can't just sit down and get into it and go. Like it's always like things to juggle. And like, I want to get back to a place like that really bad. That's right now. It's just not possible, but hopefully soon.
Yeah, it's really hard. What I try to do is manage to put the other stuff. I either put it in the middle of the day. So I have, at least 4 hours in the morning 4 or 5 hours in the morning to do the main part of my daily job,
Yeah.
or at the end of the day, like by 5 or something. And I try to put everything in those spaces during the day, so that at least I know that I have every time at least like 3 hours to, get my head in the right space.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's complicated, and people don't understand it, because, and with all due respect to any other job, like if you have to put data on a computer,
Yeah.
you can count like that. You can say 7 hours, and you can scatter them however you wanted them.
Right. Right.
And it's fine, because you're just putting data in a computer. Again, with all due respect, I mean, I respect the job.
It's just different. We're not saying it's easy. It's just different. Yeah.
And I don't know, like, it's one of those things that until you don't experience it personally, I gotta be happy with what I have right now. The fact that she gets angry sometimes, in the end, she understands. She kind of understands, but she'll never fully understand, I think.
Yeah, I think the healthy way to look at it is it's hard for any freelance artist for their spouse to understand, but the other side of that coin is it's hard for the spouse to relate to what you're doing. So it's just a very different way of living that most people can't really wrap their heads around, unless you own your own business, you get it. I think that's close.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of the same thing. It's
in terms of responsibility, I think you will get it, because you have this thing, and when you don't work, you don't make money, and it's
Right.
But also, like, again, as I was saying earlier, like, you're not only let's say entrepreneur, like you have your own business, but it's a creative.
Yeah,
it's in a creative space.
Right.
That adds a second layer, which is like
definitely,
because if you have a restaurant, as long as you're there, you're trying to do your best. You have X amount of hours, and I mean, it's creative as well, but normal restaurant, like a standard restaurant.
Right.
If you manage to be there for X amount of hours, that's, requested from the job, you're going to be fine, I think, unless you do shitty food, and that's another case, but
True that.
So it's really, it's hard sometimes to, it's frustrating, because you can literally tell, like, she, that you never be completely understood. Like, the only way is to have a partner that has your job, or still has another kind of similar job to yours.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So, before we're getting close to the end here, I know you had something you wanted to talk about. We didn't even get to it. So let's,
it's kind of, it might be related to what we're talking about. I was listening today. I was listening to the Joe Rogan Experience, and he had Andrew Huberman.
Okay.
He's a how do you call it, neuroscientist.
Okay.
He's really into the brain and all this stuff, and and he gets along with Rogan, because he's a really buff guy, like a gym guy, super healthy. That's he looks like a really nice guy, and he knows a lot. He has a lot of passion for what he does. And every time he's on Rogan, they talk about a million different things. And he was talking about some recent studies that would prove that, basically, I'm going to butcher this one because I just listened as I was driving, so I kept some informations. So I might be terribly wrong on some stuff. But basically, they were talking about people that are used to force themselves to do stuff that they don't want to do. Mm-hmm. And that could be anything from like the gym, hitting the gym, even if you don't want to, or even, when you use stuff in the house, put it back to its place immediately.
Yes.
Instead of procrastinating.
Oh my God. Yes. Okay.
That's typical. Like everybody has resistances to that.
Right.
And even our job, like a lot of times I don't want to draw. Or I don't want to draw specific. Like I know that there's gonna be a page where there's an environment scene that I haven't studied, so it's gonna be needing me to to study, to look at a lot of pictures and understand, and it's gonna be complicated. And and he was saying that this thing, specifically doing this thing, taps into a specific part of our brain, and I don't know if it produces a specific chemical when you do this. When you do something that you don't want to do, it produces a specific chemical, or this area of the brain gets more developed. And it turns out that it might be affecting the life expectancy. How do you say? Longevity, basically.
Yeah, life expectancy.
So if you force your people that force themselves to do stuff they don't want to do, even though it sounds like a nightmare, like first of all, it gets easier as you keep doing it. Yeah. And second of all, it makes you live longer. So it was really curious.
That's great.
Because
I'm one of those people who I always find stuff to put into my daily life that I don't want to do. Like the gym, like everyone's like, oh, you're so disciplined. You go to the gym every day. You must love it. It's like, no.
We're talking about having a family. Like, neither of us want a family, and we're just doing it to improve our brains, right?
Although I think it's destroying my brain, if I'm being honest.
Well, you're developing a lot of that part of the brain. The other parts are completely falling apart, but
right. But yeah, it's it. And the cold soaks are a big one for me. Like once it starts getting cold and I'm sitting in the pool in like January, like that's all about that. Like I don't want to do this. Everything in my body is saying, do not get in the pool. And then when I get in, my whole body is screaming at me, get the fuck out, get the fuck out, get the fuck out, get the fuck out. And you just learn to quiet that voice and do your 4 to 6 minutes, maybe 10, and then get out. And you do feel amazing, but you're right. It does. It's important. I think it's important to do stuff that you don't want to do. I agree.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I was realizing like, it's something that I've been training myself over the past years to do. And like now, for example, out of the two in the house, me and my girlfriend, I'm the one who is the more, how do you say, not clean, meaning that I put stuff
organized.
You're more organized. Organized.
Yeah.
And
I'm the same way in my house. Yes.
Yeah. And it's affecting me everywhere. Like even in my job, like I'm more willing to just say at the beginning of the day, okay, I don't want to do that, but fuck it. Let's do it. Let's start working. Let's start now. Yeah. I'm not procrastinating. Like what I used to do a lot of times was like, okay, let's start replying to emails. Let's start looking at my cell phone and do other stuff because I didn't want to start working. Now I just start, and I'm happy to see that it's something that might help me even with the gym. Like over the past, I would say 15 months, I've been eating the gym like constantly every time. Like, I haven't skipped a single week.
Yeah. Cause when you're done, you do feel amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one of the things. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Go ahead.
But I was going to say there was a book I was listening to about productivity once. Yeah. And it said, don't start your day with the easy tasks. Like, don't just get in and do your emails and look at your calendar. It said, just 15 minutes, start the hard task just for 15 minutes. Just go for the hard task that is like your big task for the day. Just 15 minutes, then go do your emails. Because what you've done is you've turned on that brain that part of your brain that's going to tackle the hard stuff. And then you go do your emails, and that thing is working out some of the problems that you started opening it up to. So then when you come back to it, you get into the zone quick. You're like, I want to get back to it. Like my mind is telling me, like, let's get back, let's go.
Yeah.
And even though it sucks,
what Huberman was talking about, like there's they notice in like fighters, for example, like, you know, even training for a fight, I can't even imagine like how a camp that prepares you to a fight, like an MMA fight must be. Like sometimes it's like 4, 6, 7, 8 weeks of pure hell, you know? And he was saying like just the idea of waking up in the morning and you come from a lot of hard training the day before and now you got to do it again for another like 8, 10 hours, just having people trying to fucking kill you. And you're going to puke, you're going to run for 2 hours and then you're going to kill yourself. And just that, in the morning, he was saying, I'm probably butchering this one as well, but it was like the body and the brain, they start preparing for that moment. So there's a level of anticipation stress. So the body starts activating because something bad is going to happen, you know?
Yeah.
And so you're preparing for war already, basically. So you can, as you said, you can feed from that with all the other tasks for the rest of the day. And it's a really great thing. And another thing that helps me, and I never realized that, but I want to try and do that switch, is thinking about the later gratification that you were talking, the stuff that you were talking about. Like, if I decide tomorrow I don't have the gym. Let's say it's Friday. It's Friday morning for me. So I would have to go to the gym on Friday at 1 p.m., which I did today. So the instant gratification would be send a message to the gym and like, hey, I'm sorry, something came up. I'm going to skip my day. What happens is all my day frees up because, you know, if I have to go to the gym, that means overall like 2.5 hours of, you know, not working and all that other stuff. So it's gonna affect my whole day. So because I have to prepare myself, I have to drive over there, do that, and then take a shower. And then grab the car again and go back to my house, put in the dirty clothes and the laundry machine, blah, blah, blah. So it's a whole thing, you know?
Yeah. Oh, I know.
So instant gratification would be just like, you know what? Today I'm not going to go to the gym. Yeah. You know? And, but it's nothing compared to the way bigger gratification of what happens after I finish my workout.
Right.
I'm just, it's the best. The same thing that happens with, you know, the pages. Sometimes I don't want to work and I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to do this and this and that other stuff that it's still work related, but it's not that thing that I'm driving. You know, drawing that building that's going to be a pain in the ass, for example. Right. But if I do, at the end of the day, I'm going to be so present, even with my family, because I completed my task that I, you know, was supposed to be doing. I completed the mission, basically. And it's so fucking rewarding. So when I think about the final reward, it helps me in advance. And I'm like, I got to remind myself, like, okay, it would be great not to go to the gym. But remember how you feel every time you finish your workout, or at least most of the time. And that helps. You know? Yeah.
So. Honestly, since I've been working out pretty regularly for most of my life, I never feel good missing the gym. I hate missing the gym. I feel like shit for missing the gym. Is that little Aaliyah in the background?
Oh, yeah. He arrived. He clearly arrived and he's screaming through the staircase. So that's why you hear him. Yes, this thing, like he screams through the staircase, which is the only place he shouldn't, because it's basically we're 4 houses all connecting in that area. So everybody has staircases in this area. So if I scream here, nobody hears me. But if I scream on the staircase, everybody
oh my God,
in this complex will hear me. And he keeps doing it. But what was saying?
I was just saying.
No, the gym to me is sense of guilt because it's one of the things that I was supposed to be doing, and I decided not to.
Exactly.
But I don't like being in the gym. If I liked it, I would be so happy to go there every time. And I'm not.
I can't say if I like it or don't like it because it's just something I have to do. And that's how I think about it. It's like, I don't say, I'm going to the gym. I don't do that. And I'm not like, I don't feel like going. I hate the gym. It's neither. It's like, this is what we're doing. Just go do it. But most of the time, about 30 minutes in, I feel great and I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, to me, I can tell you, I don't like going to the gym because there's other physical activities that if you tell me we're going to be doing that, I'll be like, okay, yeah, let's grab the bag. I can't wait to go. And like, for example, like something that I can't do anymore because of my knees, but basketball. Like I had friends that sometimes will tell me, hey, especially during the summer, hey, you guys want to go? We had a chat on WhatsApp. You guys want to go like today? At 6:30. Do you want to meet and shoot play some basketball? I would immediately, like 3 seconds after reading the message, I would be preparing my bag already and just be there.
Right.
Like even earlier. Like 20 minutes earlier to warm up.
Yeah.
You know,
I get that. And
it's still physical activity, but it's not the gym. It's playing with other people. So that I love. So I would always be excited about that. The gym, no way. The only way I would see myself excited about going to the gym is if my progress was so great, like, I don't know, like all of a sudden my strength goes to 100 and I can see like my shoulders popping out and stuff like that. In that case, I would be motivated and, you know, all of a sudden, like I lift like 250 pounds on the bench and stuff like that.
I think those days are over.
Oh yeah, no, it will never happen.
I'll never get back to that.
Yeah. So if I see that kind of progress, that would encourage me to go because now it's become a kind of competition, even if it's just with myself, but I would be more encouraged to do that. The same way it happened with jiu-jitsu, which is a fucking pain in the ass when you start because everybody beats your ass.
Yeah.
Every time you come back home, you're sore, even on your muscles, on your body, and on your mind, because you've been basically raped by 30 different people in an arc of an hour and 30 minutes, basically.
Right.
Sorry, sexually assaulted. We don't use that term anymore, but basically. And so you just want to die. And but when you start becoming stronger, you start beating up some opponents. There's some, you know, maybe out of the 20 teammates, now you can beat 3 or 4 of them. You're more excited to go, you know?
Sure, I get that.
So, yeah.
Okay, brother. We did it. We did the podcast. Made it. All right, you wanna take us out? Oh boy. Oh, we gotta do some stretches. He's excited now. Breathe.
Inkpulp Podcast. 1986. A masked vigilante stalks the streets of Freak City, seeking final vengeance against his evil rogues gallery. Defective Comics presents Savage Street Vigilante. An over-the-top, creator-owned, superhero parody comic book unlike any other. From band favorite artistic sensation, Jim Mafood. 48 pages of pure, glorious destruction. Launching October 1st on Kickstarter.